Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1752B, and today's date is December 28th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Deep State Using All Their Ammunition to Cover Up the Inevitable. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, as we can see, the deep state, they are using all their ammunition, and they're just pumping out as much as they possibly can to cover up what is coming. But it is not working. I mean, if we look at what happened with Trump visiting the troops, CNN tried to push the idea that Trump broke regulations of the armed forces, but the Air Force responded that there were no regulations that were broken. Trump tweeted out the following: CNN and others within the fake news universe were going wild about my signing MAGA hats for our military in Iraq and Germany. If these brave young people ask me to sign their hat, I will sign. Can you imagine my saying no? We brought or gave no hats, as the fake news first reported. Now, when we look at this, we can see that the mainstream media, they don't care what Trump does. If he does this, they'll criticize him. If he does that, they'll criticize him. The fake news, they prepared news stories during Christmas where they were going to say that Trump didn't visit the troops. Remember, they're not in the inside. They're not getting the feed of information anymore. They have no idea what is going on. They're completely blacked out. They had no idea that he was planning to visit the troops. So they decided, okay, it's already Christmas. Guess what? We have him. He's not visiting the troops. This will be a great story. They prepared it, and then Trump shows up out in the Middle East with the troops, out in Germany with the troops. That whole story got flushed down the toilet, and it was a fake news story. Did the mainstream media take it down? No, but they criticized POTUS for not visiting the troops, which turned out to be fake, phony, and false. Then they found out that he visited the troops, and then they criticized him for visiting the troops. That's interesting. Then they criticized the troops for having Trump sign their hats. Then they tried to say, well, Trump must have brought the hats there, and that's completely against regulations. And then they found out he didn't bring the hats. And they're saying, well, just by signing the hats, he broke the Armed Forces regulations. The Air Force came out and said there were no regulations that were broke. He didn't violate anything. So the mainstream media criticized him for not going, criticized him for going, criticized him for doing the same thing that Obama did. The mainstream media will never be satisfied with anything the president does. The question is, why? Annans know why. Because they know what's coming. And they're trying to do everything they possibly can to protect themselves. Now, what's very interesting about Comey's confession behind closed doors says a lot. Comey has now confirmed what Republican lawmakers like Devin Nunes, Charles Grassley, Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan have warned about for months, that the FBI used an unverified dossier paid for by the presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party as a political opposition research to justify spying on the duly nominated GOP candidate for president just weeks before Election Day. Now, this is coming from the Hill, John Solomon. First, the Justice Department Inspector General found that Comey wrongly usurped the powers of the Attorney General when he chose to make his own decision not to prosecute Hillary Clinton in the classified email investigation, and that he violated department policies by announcing the reopening and the closing of the Clinton email case, the latter just days before Election Day. That finding supported Democrats' worst fears that Comey may have cost their candidate the election, and it validated the primary reason the Trump administration fired Comey as FBI director a few months later. Second, let's remember that Comey was the man who famously testified in 2016 that the FBI agents don't give a hoot about politics when they investigate, which is a complete lie. A year later, we learn that the very FBI employees Comey entrusted to lead the Clinton and Trump investigations, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, obsessed over the 2016 election and even discussed in government text messages using their official powers to stop Trump from becoming president. Third, Comey's investigative team, in the form of the Steele dossier, and his general counsel James Baker, in the form of evidence from the Democratic Party lawyer, accepted politically tainted evidence to further the probe of Trump. Finally, Comey has insisted he didn't condone leaking inside the FBI, yet on his watch, top deputy Andrew McCabe was caught leaking to the news media and later fired for lying about it. So, in summary, James Comey approved a series of FISA warrants to surveil Trump without having any knowledge whatsoever that Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia. Comey said in his testimony that in July 2016, when all this started, the FBI didn't know whether we had anything. Comey reportedly offered his first sign-off on FISA warrant in October 2016, and those FISAs kept getting renewed for a while until good faith actors in the Trump administration realized the extent of what was going on. Comey also said, in fact, when I was fired as director, I still don't know whether there was anything to it. Well, there you have it. The whole thing was a complete hoax. Now, this new evidence further disqualifies the Russian collusion narrative by proving the whole thing was a setup orchestrated by Hillary Clinton. The fact that Rod Rosenstein and other deep state conspirators signed off on the FISA warrants based on Isakov's reporting only further demolishes their own credibility in this case. Yahoo News and its reporter Michael Isikoff are under fire after it was revealed that the news outlet coordinated with Fusion GPS and its founder Glenn Simpson to publicize the fake findings of the anti-Trump dossier. In fact, Yahoo News article by Isikoff was presented as evidence to get FISA warrant to surveil Trump Tower, even though the article counted Simpson as its primary source. The whole thing is completely fake. Now, the Hillary Clinton campaign issued a press release on September 24, 2016, promoting information from the Christopher Steele dossier. Now, the press release has almost completely been scrubbed from the internet, but it is preserved in at least one tweet and in an internet archive sponsored by the American Presidency Project. And it shows that Clinton was pushing this. It's amazing what the internet can do for you, because you can always get the information. Deleting something really doesn't mean it's deleted, because people take snapshots of it. And if someone takes a snapshot of it and then you try to delete it, well, you have the archive and it shows up in other places. Let's move on to what is happening with border security in the wall. Now, we see the Dems, they introduced a bill requiring Mexico to pay for the wall. Now, this is not going to work whatsoever. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas introduced legislation forbidding construction of the wall on the U.S.-Mexico border unless Mexico pays for it. Now, a bill passed here, which is it's probably not going to go anywhere. This bill that was introduced, even if it passes, has no effect on Mexico. They don't abide by our laws. So this is just a method of trying to stop the inevitable of the wall being built. It is not going to work. And remember that NAFTA was completely renegotiated, and because of the New Deal, Mexico was negotiating with the United States. Because of this New Deal, it saved the United States billions of dollars. So yes, indirectly, Mexico will be paying for this wall because they decided to negotiate with the United States for this New Deal, and it saved the United States a lot of money. And by the way, I do believe that eventually what's going to happen is Trump is going to get rid of all of these deals and create completely new ones once the transition is complete. Now, Trump is out there, and he tweeted out something very interesting where he completely agrees with Obama back in 2011. And he tweeted out, "I totally agree." What did he agree with? Well, Obama came out on January 25th, 2011, and said, "I strongly believe that we should take on, once and for all, the issue of illegal immigration." And Trump says, "I agree with this," because Trump continually shows everyone that these people were talking about walls, they were talking about border security, they were talking about illegal immigration. Of course, they weren't really going to do something about it. They were just talking and making sure that they were giving people what they wanted while they did everything else in the background that had nothing to do with what the people really wanted. That's a politician for you. So we see at this time that something happened in California, and Trump is using this right now. Trump tweeted out the following: "There is right now a full-scale manhunt going on in California for an illegal immigrant accused of shooting and killing a police officer during a traffic stop. Time to get tough on border security. Build the wall." Now, the individual that was shot was Singh, Corporal Singh. He was a native of Fiji and immigrated to America, came in legally, and he lived in Modesto with his family. He was shot. Now, they're saying the person who shot him, which I believe now they apprehended this individual, is an illegal immigrant. And it's amazing how the mainstream media is not talking about how this individual is a legal immigrant. He went through the process, came to America, followed his dream, became a police officer, made a life for himself in this country, while an illegal immigrant who jumped over the border, made his way into the country, shot him. Now again, they're saying, this is coming from the sheriff's office, that he is an illegal immigrant. We'll have to wait and see if this is confirmed. But it's amazing how they're not taking the side of the individual that was shot, saying that he was living the American dream as a legal immigrant. Now, the shutdown is continuing, and Trump is out there tweeting like crazy and says that he's going to be shutting down the southern border. He tweeted out the following: "We'll be forced to close the southern border entirely if the obstructionist Democrats do not give us the money to finish the wall and also change the ridiculous immigration laws that our country is saddled with. Hard to believe there was a Congress and a president who would approve. The United States loses so much money on trade with Mexico under NAFTA, over $75 billion a year, not including drug money, which would be many times that amount, that I would consider closing the southern border a profit-making operation. We will build a wall or close the southern border, bring our car industry back into the United States where it belongs, go back to pre-NAFTA before so many of our companies and jobs were so foolishly sent to Mexico. Either we finish the wall, or we close the border. Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador are doing nothing for the United States but taking our money. Word is that a new caravan is forming in Honduras, and they're doing nothing about it. We'll be cutting off all aid to these three countries, taking advantage of U.S. for years. And if there is another caravan that decides to come up to the United States, guess what? Trump is just going to use that against them, saying this is a national security issue, and then move to the military to build the wall. So no matter what they tried to do, they will be stopped. They will not win. The wall will be built. Now, there's a lot of talk about this whole government shutdown and how people aren't being paid. We know that Comey came out with his tweet saying that the FBI is going to be going through the Christmas holiday without getting a paycheck, which he was completely wrong. He lied about. They did get paid, but not every federal employee isn't getting paid. Federal employees will not necessarily feel the effects for weeks after the partial government shutdown went into effect Saturday, according to the Office of Management and Budget. Federal workers are still set to receive their holiday paychecks for the December 9th to the 22nd biweekly pay period on time, no matter what happens in Congress. Holiday paychecks are expected to be issued between December 28th and January 3rd, according to the Office of Management and Budget guidance. The new Congress will convene in January 23rd, as we know. The first federal payday that will cover workdays affected by the shutdown will not be until January 11th. Many departments have funding despite the shutdown and reopen Wednesday like normal, but 9 departments are without government funding. The departments of Agriculture, Commerce, Homeland Security, Housing and Urban Development, Interior, Justice, State, Transportation, and Treasury are currently caught in the crosshairs of the shutdown, as are agencies like NASA and the Food and Drug Administration. Many federal employees deemed non-essential are furloughed or expected to work during the shutdown but have received pay anyway after shutdowns in recent years, according to the Office Management and Budget blog posts. So not everyone is caught up in this, and many people are still being paid. So when you see them tweeting out saying, oh, all these people are not getting paid, it is just not true. A lot of these departments have the funding. A lot of these departments are still getting their paychecks. Eventually, if this continues on, everything will shut down, everyone will not get a paycheck, and it will be a complete and utter disaster. Or will it? Do we need this much government? Not really. Will it affect our personal lives, the American people, the billions of people? No. It will only affect those individuals that are working for government. But I think this will be solved very, very quickly as we move into the new year and the wall will be built. Trump is just pushing the narrative. Will he get the money? Maybe, maybe not. It really doesn't matter because they already have the plan to build the wall. Now, when we look at all these social media sites and we look at all these websites out there, everyone relies on the metrics, where how much traffic is coming to these sites. Well, it turns out that these metrics that we're looking at might not be true. We see former Reddit CEO Ellen Pao said that, and this she was responding to a New York Magazine article which reveals that the internet traffic meters from some of the largest tech companies are overstated or fabricated. In other words, they're BS. And she tweeted out that, yeah, a lot of this stuff is fake. The metrics, she's saying, are fake. Take something as seemingly simple as how we measure web traffic. Metrics should be the most real thing on the internet. They are countable, trackable, and verifiable, and their existence undergirds the advertising business that drives our biggest social and search platforms. Yet, not even Facebook, the world's greatest daily gathering organization, seems able to produce genuine figures. In October, small advertisers followed suit against the social media giant, accusing it of covering up for a year its significant overstatements of the time users spent watching videos on the platform. Now, Facebook says, well, it's only 60 to 80%, but the plaintiffs say, no, it's around 150 to 900%. Now, according to an exhaustive list at Marketland, over the past 2 years, Facebook has admitted to misreporting the reach of posts on Facebook pages in 2 different ways. The rate at which viewers complete ad videos, the average time spent reading its instant articles, the amount of referral traffic from Facebook to external websites, the number of views that videos receive via Facebook's mobile site, and the number of videos views in instant articles. And the way these metrics are calculated are very interesting. Think about a video. Facebook claims that 75 million people watched at least a minute of Facebook videos every day. Though the 60 seconds in that 1 minute didn't need to be watched consecutively, which is a problem in itself. The other problem is that mobile devices, when you're in a car or going from cell tower to cell tower, every time a new cell tower picks up your phone, it counts it as a new user. So that's also a problem. And these metrics don't seem to be adding up right now. And it looks like these social media giants, these big tech companies, they're in a lot of trouble because people are saying these stats are just not true. We see there was a bombshell that has to do with Khashoggi. He was a foreign influence agent, part of the Muslim Brotherhood. And when they pushed this story out there, they tried to push a certain agenda. And we can see that it didn't work. We see that there was a company that gathered the text messages between Khashoggi and an executive, a Qatar Foundation international show, that the executive, Mackie Mitchell Salam, at times shaped the columns he submitted to the Washington Post, proposing topics, drafting material, prodding him to take a harder line against the Saudi government. Now, the Washington Post, they are back into a corner, and they're going to have to start explaining all this, or they'll just pretend it didn't exist. But it looks like a security studies group, when they were doing their research, they found something very interesting. Their investigation and their documents show that wire transfers from Qatar were found in Khashoggi's apartment in Turkey. They were immediately put out of reach by Turkish security services, so they did not show the collusion between Khashoggi, Qatar, and Turkey prior to his death. And it seems that Khashoggi is more than meets the eye. It seems like he was deep into the Muslim Brotherhood. He was working for the intelligence organizations, and all of this was a complete and utter setup. And of course, Erdogan was using it for his benefit, trying to push his agenda. The intelligence organizations were using it for their benefit, trying to get the prince out of his position, trying to shake things up in Saudi Arabia, trying to get Trump to do something. But it seems like there are more and more reports coming out showing that there was more than what the Washington Post, what Brennan was saying, what everyone was saying, that they were really behind a lot of this. Now, Angela Merkel, she was giving a speech, and she said something very interesting. Nation states must today be prepared to give up their sovereignty. And this is according to German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who told an audience in Berlin that sovereign nation states must not listen to the will of their citizens when it comes to questions of immigration, borders, or even sovereignty. What? Not listen to their citizens, not listen to their public and what the public actually wants? Well, guess what's going to happen? The public is going to rise up against these individuals. And we've said this for a very long time. These individuals that are in office, they don't care what the people say. If they say they don't want this, they don't want the immigration pact, they don't want any of this, it doesn't matter to these individuals. They are the deep state. They have their own agenda. And the people mean nothing to them. This is why we see the yellow vests out there protesting. This is why Macron is caving, but will he cave on everything? No, he'll probably backtrack on all of it and go against the people once again. All these people don't understand. The people have the power. The people need to understand that they have more power than these leaders. If we band together, guess what? They have no chance. Now, Macron, he also said pretty much the same thing. And it echoes the same exact thing that Merkel is saying. Now, during Remembrance Day, during his speech, he said patriotism is the exact opposite of nationalism because nationalism is treason. Well, the people said no way. His approval ratings nosedived even further after his comments. These people think they're in control. These people think that if we say this, the people will just go along with it. They don't realize how much power the people actually have. We see right now, as the troops are leaving Syria, the Syrian armed forces are now meeting with the Kurdish forces. The U.S. is still there, and they're negotiating a peace deal. And it looks like everything that Turkey wants to do, I don't think it's going to happen here. I believe that the Syrian forces, they're going to integrate with the Kurdish forces. They're going to be part of Syria. We already see that Syria has raised the flag in this area, and it's game over. The Kurds are returning to Syria and therefore rejecting the USA and France. Turkey, with pointing the finger at the Kurds, saying that they're terrorists, that we're going to get them, that's not going to happen. And eventually what's going to happen is the French and the rest are going to be forced out of Syria. Now, something very interesting happened out in New York City. First, a transformer blew up in Queens. People saw this bright light. They didn't know what it was. The NYPD came out, said that the lights you have been seeing throughout the city appear to be from the transformer that exploded. Con Ed facility was the place where it happened, and it is under control right now. But that's very interesting that a transformer blew. The other thing that is strange is that the Federal Communications Commission is launching an investigation into the nationwide CenturyLink internet outage and disrupted access to 911 lines. Now, in Washington State, Missouri, Idaho, Arizona, there were outages, and they're looking into this right now. And again, we know that the deep state, they will push their agendas. They will test what they're going to do. They will bring down certain areas if they see fit to push an event to keep all eyes off of what's going on. They understand that time is ticking down, that eventually the D-class is going to come. Once all of it is in place, which we're getting to that point, everything will be activated. And there was an anon on the 8chan boards that kind of summed up all of this. And let me just read what this anon has said. This was on 12/28/18. Q has directed us down parallel narrative tracks for a while now, and it was never truly clear how these narratives came together in a larger sense. Narrative 1. Trust Sessions, trust Ray, trust Huber, trust Horowitz. Most anons have interpreted this narrative to mean that Huber is silently prosecuting all the deep state bad actors in the background, with the help of Horowitz and 470 plus Inspector General staff. He has loads of sealed indictments, and he's waiting for the right time to unseal them and start the mass arrests. Narrative 2. Military tribunals, Lindsey Graham's discussion with Kavanaugh at the hearing, articles about Bush-era tribunal structure, Department of Justice memoranda confirming constitutionality of military detention of U.S. citizens. Reconcile. These two narratives seem largely unrelated, if not completely at odds with one another, and we are rounding them up in military tribunals, or are we prosecuting them in civilian courts? The answer is a bit of both, but military tribunals must come first. For those involved in treason, subversion, aiding, supporting the enemy, or causing the civilian justice system to fail, military tribunals await them. For those involved in general nastiness, bribery, racketeering, blackmail, sex trafficking, etc., a cleaned-up civilian justice system awaits them. So how is it likely to unfold? Number 1, declassifies brings down the House. Right around the time Mueller issues his report, POTUS declassifies the FISA warrant application and subsequent renewals. This declass demonstrates that the entire start of the Russia collusion investigation was predicated on the need to surveil Carter Page because he is a foreign agent of the Russian government, even though documentation demonstrates he was an FBI informant for many years before that, and John P. Carlin knew that when he signed the initial FISA warrant application. In other words, D-class demonstrates that the entire investigation and special counsel were BS from the beginning. Huber and Horowitz, well, they kind of lay everything on the table. Now, Q's explanation of what Mueller's objective is to withhold evidence that could be damaging to the deep state from clean prosecutors. Mueller tells Rosenstein that certain evidence cannot be shared with IG or any other prosecutor because it would obstruct his investigation. Rod Rosenstein complies, and the rest of the Department of Justice has to go along. So after FISA declass, and everyone knows that Mueller's investigation is BS, Huber and Horowitz come out and say they have lots of good leads and some serious evidence, but that Mueller and Rod Rosenstein have been obstructing their work. Suddenly, the world sees just how corrupt the Department of Justice has become. Military tribunals are demanded by all. The truth is so evident, not even the guilty can publicly object. 3. Tribunals. So now we have the military tribunals. If you want to learn a lot about military tribunals, read the article, and he gave a link. Now, he went on to say, if you are too lazy to read the articles, here are a few interesting points. Military commissions consist of 3 to 7 members who act as both judge and jury. Commissions are formed and personnel selected by the Secretary of Defense. Decisions do not need to be unanimous. 2 to 3 majority is all that's required. The exclusionary rule does not apply. This means that illegally collected evidence is still admissible. This means that everything the NSA has collected is admissible. Everything that Ezra Cohen Watnick has been scooping up from both the intelligence community and the Department of Justice is admissible. This means you are a traitor, and I have evidence to prove it. Never mind where I got it. Oh, and we are likely to see some familiar faces at these tribunals, either as commissioners, prosecutors, or as witnesses. Admiral Mike Rogers, Jeff Sessions, General John Kelly, General Mattis, Ezra Cohen Watnick, Lieutenant Michael Flynn, all the singing birdies from the Department of Justice, FBI, trying to save their skins. Now, number 4, Huber and Horowitz can resume their jobs. Now that the traitors have been removed, Huber and Horowitz will have full access to the evidence that Mueller has been withholding. They will also be unencumbered by leakers or anyone else. They can get down to business, cleaning up everything else. Human trafficking, child rapists, you name it. And you can see that there is a plan. Now, is this the exact plan? No. This is someone looking at the entire situation and saying that this is how it might unfold. But we can see that all the pieces are in place. Everything is ready. We're just waiting for a few more pieces. Other things to go active. And once they do, guess what? The deep state, all these individuals, will have no place to run. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.